Oh, whoa. Getting stuff figured out here. Let's see.
This PBS News presentation is made possible by Consumer Cellular, by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
I think there'll be a delay in that, and then this will be the chat. Check 1, 2.
Welcome to PBS News
And by
special live
contributions to your
coverage of the ABC News presidential debate in Philadelphia. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight is a high-pressure moment for both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Polls show that the race is a coin flip, and a good performance could provide momentum for either candidate as they enter the final sprint to Election Day, now just 55 days away.
This is the first and perhaps only time we will see these two candidates share a stage before the election, and the debate begins right now.
I'm using PBS, hoping I don't get,
Good evening,
flagged.
I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate.
Here
we want
we
to
go.
welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice
She wanted to
President
be on the
Kamala
right.
Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's
Here we
wonderful
go,
to have
people.
you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started.
Turn this up a
I want to
little bit.
begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before. which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation.
Oh, what happened?
Inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your
Well, I won't
desk?
have to, because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it, because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women, who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs, barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. what they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where Bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
I'm sitting here talking and my mic's mute. She says, let me be clear. She's been lying the whole time. How many times has she flip-flopped and said that she banned fracking? Now all of a sudden she wants to frack. She tells the American people, Trump's lying, Trump's lying. Let's see what they got to say.
Hour tonight.
The PBS NewsHour, your source.
Trump's lying. Trump's lying. Let me be clear. I've always been for fracking. No, she hasn't. Oh my God, this is driving me nuts. I want to throw stuff at the camera. It's just driving me crazy. And I don't know how anybody's buying into her BS. It's insane. Oh my God. I had turned my mic off. I apologize for that. And I was just, well, it's probably a good thing. Y'all don't want to hear me yapping. But I turned it off because, man, I don't want to, interrupt them talking. But, and this whole, I don't, she hasn't defended herself on the border. I think Trump scored huge on that. And I think he scored huge on the abortion part of it, too. She wouldn't answer the question if, would you allow a 8-month, 9-month, or a baby to be born and kill it? She never answered it. She just said, oh, that's just ridiculous or whatever. She didn't answer it. She didn't answer it. Because we all know. We all know. They've been doing that. And nobody wants to talk about it because it's so heinous. It's so awful. It's the ugliest part of it. Well, it's all ugly. Abortion is ugly and hideous and insidious and all the above. But she didn't answer that question. Hell, guys, they had an abortion vehicle outside their DNC. This is crazy. I think Trump's done a great job on the border because she has done nothing. They have been in office this whole time. And all these illegals flooding in. I hope young people watching this realize all you got to do is go to the store, and we're going to get more of the same if these people get elected again. It's going to be bad. It's not going to get better. And they were using up our reserves to bring down some of the pain at the pump. They shouldn't have done that because they stopped the fracking. They stopped the pipeline. Oh, and how about Putin? Putin's endorsing Kamala. Oh, my God. That just cracked me up when he said that. Yeah, he wants her to get elected because they can just do whatever the hell they want to do. Could you imagine? She says they all hate it. They all don't like him. They all don't respect Trump. Yeah, they fear him. They might not respect him, but they fear him. He's a man. What do you think, guys, is going to do with a woman in office? I mean, they're not going to respect her. They're not going to respect our country. They already don't respect us because of Biden. They're just allowing them to do anything. We don't even have a border. We're a bunch of idiots. We are the laughingstock of the planet. All right, here we go.
Pennsylvania. Here again, David Moore and Lindsay Davis.
Here we go.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. they're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations
thank
with
you.
the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsey.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn
we
back to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond
No,
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better.
Correct.
Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh my God. This is it's been really good. Wow. I still think she's been still giving gobbledygoo that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And she hasn't done nothing. She's not going to do anything. How? She's been there. She says she travels the world. She talks to these people. But we got wars happening everywhere. She's part of the Biden administration. She's supposed to be taking care of the border. She's not. Listening to her speak, she hasn't convinced me that she is going to take care of the border, because I don't believe it. Because she hasn't done it. But she's in office now. That's the part I can't get around, is that they've been in office and all of this crap is happening. But yet, Trump just lies about everything. I like how she said earlier that he just lies and he just attacks and he's dividing us. I have never heard Trump talk like dividing people. It's the liberals who divide people. She sounds like Obama. Especially when she went back and forth wishy-washy on defunding the police. She literally said she wanted to defund the police. She said to defund them because the resources, I saw a clip earlier, that the resources that they were spending on police should be spent elsewhere. And we need to seek other ways of protecting ourselves. To me, that sounds like what Obama was stomping when he talked about the brown shirts. He wanted to, basically what he's saying, he wants to get rid of the police, create a government police, Cities govern their police departments city by city by city. I think the government, I think that's what they want to do, guys. I'm saying it right now. I think they want to have a government-controlled police force that's across the board, across the whole United States. They control it. The government controls it. I think that's what they want to do. Obama talked about the brown shirts. Obama talked about going forward, not going back. She sounds just like him. She sounds just like him. I mean, she's twisting the words a little bit, but it's the same crap. It's the same socialist crap. I can read between the lines. Excuse me. I just hope everybody else can too see this. I think she's been weak in this debate. She hasn't been strong and tough at all. I don't know. She's just driving me nuts. And I think Trump has done a pretty good job not losing his cool. And she's interrupted him. And wasn't that funny when she goes, oh, and by the way, I'm not going to take people's guns. You better believe they're going to try to take people's guns. They're going to stop the fracking. They're going to push this. Oh, my God. Y'all know that Biden and them, they want to do away with gas-powered cars and go all electric. They've already started it in California by telling the people with their lawnmowers and weed eaters that they can't even buy those products anymore in California. So once their lawnmower takes a dump, they have to use an electric lawnmower. And this is what they want to do with the rest of the country. You better believe all that.
Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Oh, my God.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements. And Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like We're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
She says she's only had the people in mind the whole time. They're going to have a panel here on PBS. Actually, I watched a panel of them earlier, and it was actually not bad. They had, let's see what they got to say.
Payne, I want to begin with you two before we turn to everyone else here, and let's just get your quick takeaways. The candidates' work here is over now. The surrogates and the campaigns take over. What are you hearing from them in terms of
PBS,
how they saw the debate and their takeaways? Laura?
Well, Harris's campaign is feeling really good about this debate. They feel as though they did a number of things that she wanted to do going in, which was goad him, and she did that on quite a few fronts. She did that on on abortion. She did that on election denialism, and they said also that in the first hour of the debate, 71% of the grassroots donations that they were getting were from women. So they feel as though some of her strongest moments were when she was going after him on abortion and when she was talking about those personal stories of women who were having miscarriages and unable to get the care that they needed. And they also said that based on the undecided voters that they were tracking live during the debate, that the campaign was tracking, that another strong moment for her was her response when Donald Trump was questioned about her black identity and her saying that racism is a pattern for him and that America doesn't want this anymore, as well as her response to him on election denialism and January 6th. They said that ranked really well with the undecided voters.
Lisa, we knew that the Harris strategy was going to be to try to goad President Trump to going off script. What's the Trump campaign saying about some of those
The Trump
moments?
campaign knew that too. Former President Trump knew that. I will tell you, I have not heard from my Trump campaign sources, some of whom usually do text me back in situations like this. So that's a sign. The Trump campaign did put out an official statement declaring that Trump was the winner of this debate. There has been a lot of response when I posted that on social media. People saying they don't.
I think he did. And what the hell? So she gets more money because they talk about aborting babies? That is disturbing. I'm sorry, people. No, I'm not sorry. That is just disturbing. You're going to get more money because we're going to kill more babies? People, we're not going to have any young people to take care of us when we're old. I'm already old. There's going to be an aging population. We need to stop killing our children.
See it that way. But let's talk about other Republicans in Congress. I just got this from a Republican Senate source. They want to take back the Senate. They are very much in reach of doing that. Wrote me, I was in pain watching it. Imagine what Nikki could have done, talking about Nikki Haley. Trump just took the bait and missed the argument. when Vice President Harris talked about, for example, Wharton economists from his alma mater criticizing his economic plan, and then the size of his crowds really got under his skin, and you could see his tone and demeanor changing. Now,
I thought he handled that question very well. I mean, he just came back at her and goes, people love my rallies. He has the biggest rallies anybody has ever had in the history of rallies for a president. I didn't think he didn't seem rattled to me. I guess people see what they want to see. I tried to listen to her. She didn't tell me nothing. She didn't tell me nothing. The same thing as she hasn't been taking any interviews this whole time. And she still gave us nothing of substance. But platitudes. I'm for the people. I was the only prosecutor to do stuff and blah, 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 blah. But man, and then he slammed her when he said, you guys have been in office for 3 years. Why don't you go back to that beautiful White House and go take care of business? And plus, he was right when he said that Biden is president. He could just go down there and shut the border down. It's a national security problem. He is the chief guy over the military.
What Republicans in Capitol Hill thinks really probably doesn't matter. What matters is undecided voters. And we've been following voters throughout this campaign. We talked about it during the last debate. One of them, Zach Horn from Pennsylvania, Republican undecided voter, texted me this. He said, I've been moving toward Harris. Tonight's debate further confirmed that move toward Harris. He said, I am looking for someone to build a foundation of civility. Harris offers that. Trump does not. He says, tonight I could see her as a commander-in-chief. That's a big deal.
Well, let's bring in our panel of experts. We've got Amy
Lord help us all if that woman gets elected.
Walter of the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter, Democratic strategist Amisha Cross, and Republican strategist Kevin Madden. Amisha, there was a question heading into this debate about how much Kamala Harris, the degree to which she would engage directly with Donald Trump, and how much would she really speak beyond the debate stage directly to the American people. She did both.
Yeah, absolutely. Kamala Harris had a high ceiling to clear and a very delicate balance because she is a part of the current administration. But she was also able to not only set herself apart, but to lean in on the policies that matter the most to the American people. She talked about the economy. She talked about the middle class. She talked about housing.
She talked about the economy and didn't tell us diddly squat. She's going to tell us what she's going to do to fix the economy, and it's a bloody wreck because of her and Biden. And then she just talked about abortion. How is abortion going to help the economy? It's certainly she didn't give us any substance on how she's going to take care of the border, which she should be already taking care of the border.
She talked about women's reproductive rights, but she also attacked Trump hardcore. She went after him on statements about January 6th, what he didn't do and what he should have done. She went after him on...
Those were stupid and has nothing to do with taking care of the American people. It was a waste of time. I hated that questioning, by the way. It's dumb. Let's move on. Like they said, they want to just keep moving on. We want to go forward, but he wants to go back. No, yeah, we do want to go back to when he was president. We do. Gas prices were nice. Grocery prices were nice. Everything was going great until they got in office.
On a lot of the rhetoric that he's utilized over time, in large part the divisiveness, the darkness, the lack of a path forward, the way that he's trying to take America back. And she hit him hard on his own criminality. For him to start, radicalizing and talking about the tropes that he's issued in about migrants, but then to slam him down about the things that he's currently facing.
Yeah, because of them. Nowhere in history has another political sitting president's campaign officials enlist a prosecuting attorney to go after your opponent to win an election. And I thought Trump did a great job laying that out. I understood it, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Excuse me. But her bringing all that up, it just shows that, oh yeah, y'all are the ones that did this. Y'all shouldn't have done this. I mean, you should have just waited. You were scared of him. That's why y'all went after him.
I thought that was a really, really hard hit.
Kevin, your assessment of how
That was a lame hit. I'm sorry. It was not a hard hit. And of course the left is going to say that. But come on, people. Seriously? I mean, is that really? Are y'all glad that they went after him for a bunch of dumb ass shit? Because they're scared of him? They got to dig through dirt. She's got to bring up some article that he pulled out 35 years ago of a heinous incident that happened in New York. And that's all they got? They got to get him for this other stuff. Then they got to bring up, oh, they're immune. Well, all of them are immune. It's just absurd, this dance talk to confuse the voters. They know exactly what they're doing.
former president did tonight.
Look, usually at these debates, I have like a very complex analysis, right? Multi-layered analysis. I think mine is very simple here. This was a clear case of a very clear strategy beating no strategy.
Yes.
The Harris strategy here was so apparent from the beginning, which is connect with swing voters on every single issue that matters to them as best she can. Housing, cost of child care. I think the abortion issue, which of course we know is important to a lot of suburban women that are going to decide this election. Also, bait Trump into talking about himself and relitigating his past grievances. Trump took that bait every single time. And he didn't connect on a lot of issues. He did probably his best on immigration, but I will tell you, I think for a lot of voters out there, it was less relevant to their experience, and it was more about Trump being agitated and making it more about Joe Biden and what Joe Biden did wrong. So it just felt like there were a lot of lost opportunities here for Trump to really fill in the blanks with a lot of voters about why Kamala Harris would be sort of out of the mainstream. And instead, I think what you're going to see now is a strategy of, and we're already seeing it, we're seeing a strategy of blaming the moderators for sort of putting a thumb on the scale when it came to fact checks. And I just don't think that is going to connect. We got to remember, we're in like essentially what is a European version of a snap election. And the compressed time schedule means that any advantage right now is.
Look, I didn't think Trump was agitated at all. I thought he handled it very well. And when they brought up that thing about the Klan and she brought up the tiki torches and all that, that's all been proven to be BS. And the moderators didn't say it. And they should have. That if they were fact checking right then and there, because they've got a huge team, and they didn't say nothing. They didn't say nothing.
Really going to make a difference. And I think right now you have to say advantage Harris with swing voters.
Yeah. Which is interesting because Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, you could argue, Amy, both came into tonight's debate with the same goal, which is to try to find any edge they could to change the dynamics of this razor-thin race. I saw you shaking your head when Kevin was talking about Donald Trump's unforced errors and the missed opportunities.
Right. So this was also about trying to fill in the blanks for somebody who's not as well known, and that's Kamala Harris. And I think both sides have been saying this for a while now. It's both a risk and an opportunity to not be as well defined as the vice president is. The opportunity for Trump in this was to fill in those blanks, attach her to the Biden presidency and to some of her past statements. He did that, but in a very scattershot way. I wrote down the first time he said Harris is Biden was 10:24 p.m. So it took over. Yeah,
exactly.
It was an hour into
but
it.
She is.
Harris from the very beginning was on offense and making him the incumbent. When we talk about voters wanting to see a change, she talked about turning the page. What is this election going to be about? I'm the one that's turning the page. He's the one back on grievance. So she did what she wanted to do. To Kevin's point, she converted on the strategy that she had put forward. He was supposed to go in there and make this connection between Biden and Harris, make her look out of the mainstream. He was not as strong on that, in part because he was spending so much time either defending himself or, as folks have pointed out, relitigating past grievances.
Well, Lisa, to that point, and Amy's mentioning the issues here, like two of the strongest issues for former President Trump are the economy and immigration. And after the first set of questions on the economy, it was really the immigration issue he returned to again and again and again. He really didn't come back to some of those economic points that are relatively strong for Republicans.
It is interesting that Vice President Harris invited people to go to a Donald Trump rally, because I will say that watching him at many rallies, his argument on immigration in his rallies is more cohesive. It's easier to get your hands around than what he laid out tonight in this debate.
I'm going to mute that. Let's go here.
I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
Oh, and then he said, no, I didn't.
All right, we'll recut that with the actual response from David Muir, which was, I didn't detect any sarcasm. Yeah. That's opinion. That's opinion, Emily.
Opinion.
And it is not up to the debate moderator to be saying, I don't quite believe you. That's what he's saying. I didn't believe your answer. Who gives a flying fig what David Muir thinks of Trump's answer?
That's true.
And that's why these moderators getting into the business of live fact-checking debates is a farce. And in this case, it was so obviously a farce because not once did they attempt to do the same thing to Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because in the first half of the debate, Kamala Harris came out, she seemed maybe a little nervous. Donald Trump seemed like, he thought that she would be easier to debate than she actually was. And, he took the bait a couple of times from her. She baited him into talking about his rallies, when he probably shouldn't have been litigating the size of his rallies. But then as the media fact checks started piling up, and as it became clearer and clearer that the editorial line from ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megan, they said that there was an editorial firewall in this case, which was obviously not true. That bled all the way down into this debate.
I thought he did good on that response.
And that's where Donald Trump picked up steam. He was, he I thought came across as a little overly defensive and angry in the first half of the debate. But as the media performance started to get more and more egregious, he actually really, really did start picking up steam.
Why everybody always says he's angry? He's concerned about America. He's not angry. He's like, hey, this is this. And he's pointing his finger. It's like, they did this. He goes, they did this. They did this to our country. They're destroying our country. I loved it. I loved it.
Steam. So even by their own objectives, they're too dumb. They're too dumb to actually fulfill their own their own objectives, which we all know is that they want to destroy Donald Trump, because this ends up helping him when it may not have been a good debate for him, period. Now the big conversation coming out of the Trump camp is going to be an entirely reasonable one about what a joke the media was. So the big loser here, and I mean bigger than Donald Trump in this case, is ABC News, because now I think all of the networks, to your point, Megan, might be losing access to debates from Republicans going forward. They should.
They might.
Oh, I didn't detect sarcasm. No, I didn't detect that. He shouldn't have said anything. I hope y'all caught that when they did that, because that was annoying.
They must. And just one final point on the fact check, the so-called fact check by this Lindsay Davis. Here, it's even more egregious and annoying when she's like, okay, there's no state in this union that allows a baby to be killed after being born. Or like if you do it, with the right body language, like it's very hard to deal with this lying liar who lies all the time, but I will handle it because I work for ABC News.
That drove me nuts because she didn't answer the question. I wanted to hear a definitive out of her mouth going, absolutely not what I want or approve of a baby being killed that late in term, or the baby just sit after, if the baby's already been birthed and sitting in another room and they're just like, they're decided how they're going to kill it. She didn't answer it.
And meanwhile, she's the one lying. It's just so infuriating to watch.
Oh man, it was,
right?
Yeah.
You can't, if Trump agrees to another debate on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, but maybe not CNN because he did okay on the last one. He deserves what he gets. He deserves what he gets. Because Team Kamala tonight, right now, Rich, is saying, let's have another debate. Is he up for it? She's up for it. Let's have another one. Because now she's feeling good, and she's been reminded that her little pets in the media will run cover for her. They're even better than her emotional support governor. She's got an emotional support team out there now in the form of Muir and Davis, and she would have the same thing if this were an NBC or a CBS debate as well.
Oh, I agree with that.
So Trump, I don't know what he'll do. Should he do another debate?
I think, yes, he should do another debate, but not with ABC.
I think he should. I don't think this one went very well for him. I mean, he always seems vigorous, right, and vivid. He just has that presence that you can't fake, and that he has naturally. And he made his points over and over again on the border, the economy, that she's been there for 3.5 years. But he was vague. He was repetitive. And I think, she was overly rehearsed. Obviously, she's extremely rehearsed, but she got her points across. And I think they're probably delighted with her performance tonight. As we said, a lot of help from the moderators. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Insta polls say that she won. I doubt it's decisive in the race, but they probably feel pretty good about what she did. Rehearsed. Obviously,
I have to tell you, I watched this seeing, yes, she scored some points. It was like watching a boxing match where you'd have to give her some technical points for landing points, articulating them. But I do not think she won the debate. I actually don't think so, because I think your average viewer at home understands it was 3 against 1 and would have a national sympathy for Donald Trump. Like, nobody likes that. They don't like an unfair contest. And I also thought her ridiculous preening and facial expressions and tisking and
that made my blood boil when she gave him those smirks and that laugh when he's talking about the border and all the people who were coming over and people are getting killed and she is smirking. God, I picked up on that as well.
harumphing over on screen right were a massive turnoff. And that all happened, especially in the first 20 minutes of the debate, when people are watching more than they are as the debate goes on. We actually pulled a bit of a montage of some of these faces, I think. Let's take a look.
Yeah, watch these faces, guys.
It's video. Look at her. The hand under the chin. Oh, gee, go on. Oh, do tell. Do tell.
Yeah, but to put it in context is what he's saying, what he's responding to, and she was making these faces. That was, to me, was outrageous and disturbing.
All right, it went on like this for a while.
Yeah, the Democrats hadn't done very well.
The scowling. And here's the other thing, Rich. As it turns out, we'll just keep playing this, but as it turns out, she's the one who needed the mic muted. She's the one who kept trying to interrupt.
Oh, yeah. She was interrupting him. And he's like, let me speak, And then he made a comment like, you know what that's all about. Y'all seen those clips of her before? Like, I'm speaking. I'm talking. I've got the floor. Well, she has nothing to say. She literally has nothing to say.
She's the one who should be happy that they wound up muting it because she was the interrupting cow, not Trump.
Yeah. So the Democrats have had some trouble with their on camera not speaking moments. With Biden, it was the mouth just hanging agape, which wasn't a good look. And this was a terrible look.
I think this was a terrible look for her as well. Now, the difference in the commentary, and you're going to get this if anywhere else I went, like I think with the PBS, they were more left. Even the guy that's representing conservative Republicans. Trump just had failed opportunities, and he did the. I think he responded appropriately to everything. If we're really analyzing this, look, she starts saying some stupid crap, and he just comes back. He makes his point, and he moves on, and he makes these other points. He was dead on.
She got it under control a little later, but it was just awful at the beginning. And she repeatedly tried to interrupt even though her mic wasn't on. And that led to a good Trump moment where he did the I'm speaking, please.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar? Kind of needling her with that.
Now, this is live from Megyn Kelly. I just switched over to. I've just been pausing it, so we're probably a few minutes behind.
And she used half a dozen times in the debate with Mike Pence.
But wait, I'm going to give you one more reason why I don't think she did well. And it was the personal insults, because I don't think American women who
She accused Trump of personal insults, but that's all she did was insult him. That's all she did was wanted to divide. She is a clone of Obama. Guys, think about Obama's speech when he was stumping. We're going to go forward. We don't want to go back. Oh, way. No way. Oh, what way? Whatever. He used to say dumb stuff. We're always going forward. Attack your opponents, destroy them, which this administration went even further by throwing indictments at Trump to try to just destroy him so he wouldn't run. So they would have nobody to oppose them. This was planned. And they're geniuses at it.
They're all trying to get it home, are going to respond favorably to the repeated personal insults she hurled at him.
Every time. And then she kept accusing him, well, the American people, blah, blah, blah. They don't want personal attacks. They want to hear what you're going to do, whatever. I'm, reading between what she was wanting to say. But she was doing that. It's like she's a hypocrite while she was on the stand.
In virtually every answer, she was small and she was petty, and he didn't respond. He didn't take much bait. Maybe here or there he dropped a word, but she was like a dog with a bone in her trying to attack him personally. It was unseemly. Here's a few examples.
World leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. It is very well known.
Yeah, but guys, his response was great. He goes, I fired them. I fired all of them. And they wrote books. He goes, you guys didn't fire nobody. I thought it was brilliant. I was like, whoa, that was out of the park. Guys, all these military leaders don't like you. They say you don't love the country. You don't do that. He said, I fired them. Of course they're going to say that. They went and wrote books. Hey, when people are a failure on the left prop them up on a pedestal. Remember Rush Limbaugh used to say that? If there's any Rush babies out there, if there's anybody watching this, they prop them up, give them medals, and give them positions in government when they're a failure. It's true.
That Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to...
Well, I'll tell you what, we didn't have any wars under Trump, but the world is a dumpster fire because of you guys.
Be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
Now, see, people are buying into that. They're buying into the dictator crap. These young minds full of mush. I heard a woman, the guy was walking the streets and he was asking people who they were voting for. And he asked this woman, well, who are you voting for? She said, Kamala Harris. He said, why? She said, because Donald Trump's going to become a dictator and never leave office. I mean, I was like, what? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And this woman believed it. She was serious. And answering this guy on the street's question. I was like, oh my God, they do buy into this propaganda. It's insane. People, you got to think for yourself.
It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. Why the European allies and our NATO allies are so...
With your allies. And guys, if she gets elected, we've got to hear her whiny voice. For Pete's sake, please, don't let her get elected.
Thankful that you are no longer president. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
That was absurd. So all she did was attack him. She didn't tell. I want to know what. I wanted to watch this so I could see and hear what is she going to do for the country. All she did 90% of the time was to attack him, attack his record, bring up January 6th, some stupid crap, bring up something from 30 years ago with tiki torches, which was not true. Bring up that he had the worst economy. She literally said that Trump had they inherited, they love saying that. Obama said it. We inherited a bad economy. And she's saying we inherited a bad economy. The economy was great under Trump.
It went on. We could have pulled more. And I wonder, even rewatching that, guys, come on. Trump killed it. Yes. She was a dumbass. Come on. Think about it. Points, I don't know that Trump would win this debate, but on style, Emily, I think she was a massive turnoff.
That's interesting because there were also a couple of moments where she, the race question in particular, where they asked Donald Trump why he said that she used to be.
He said black twice, and I know what he meant it's the first thing he thought. Yeah, she said she was Indian. She's from India. Right. And then, but he said black. And then he goes, I don't know. I don't care. It's irrelevant. And then he said, then she goes and let her, and now she's black. Look, that's no big secret. And why they even bring that up, it doesn't have nothing to do with taking care of the country, people. We need the country taken care of. We don't need a damn popularity contest. If you don't like Trump, damn it, he's going to get in there and go do the job. She is not. They're going to continue to destroy us with this woke propaganda crap. The border's going to stay open. They're going to stop fracking, and they're going to make us stop driving our cars. Think about it. That's what's going to happen. They're going to transform this country like you've never seen it before.
Indian, and now she's black, and then they turned the question to Kamala Harris, and like we saw her do in the Dana Bash interview, I thought she did a good job of not getting into the identity politics trap. I thought there were a couple of moments where she was clearly scripted in the right direction, but on the dictator one, Democrats think that is very much like a dog with a bone, and I think average Americans watch that and they're like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
What we want. Historically, what we've seen happen successfully is for our leaders to actually cut deals and to actually
cut deals and actually lead the country. That other countries should fear us. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not going to fear Kamala Harris. They do not fear fumbling, bumbling Biden. And I am sorry, the man has some mental stuff going on because of his age and his health or whatever. I'm not making fun of him. Don't misunderstand. But we are not respected. They do not fear him, and they're not going to fear her. I'm going to tell you right now. They are not. They're going to walk all over us like nobody's business. Plus, she's going to destroy the country. That's what they want to do. That's what they've always wanted to do. Dumb down education, take God away, put all these stupid ass mandates on us. So what? So then we're just in a disaster. And then now, we have to rely on the government, and they can swoop in and go, well, everybody's going to get the same. So you get a loaf of bread. The other people get a loaf of bread. Mark my words, people. We do not want this. We do not want socialism. Go look up what was going on in the communist countries and socialist countries at the turn of the century. You do not want this. And I don't know why they've been feeding these young minds full of mush, this crap, and it's by design. George Soros and his programs and all the colleges have fed these people for years. For at least a few decades. They've infested and infiltrated our young children's minds full of mush. And parents paid for the college. Stop paying for the college. Go seek out a college that's not going to spew this propaganda.
Engage with, talking about how you're so cool because you just ignore people who can stop wars no matter how bad they are. I just think that is a really dumb line of attack, and it's clearly one that they love and that they think is.
Well, I think it showed weakness, by the way, with her saying that, because it was stupid. It really was. Look, I know there's some strong women, but I don't think she should be president. I feel like she should not be president. And I've been praying for our country. Like, God, please, touch the hearts of America. Bring us back. Bring us back to you. Save us from them.
Brilliant. And so I thought she looked pretty silly in that particular exchange, especially because to your point, Megan, she was really, on that one, wound up. She felt like this was a slam dunk, and it was not even a layup.
That's because liberals love that kind of spew, and I think it resonates with, like I said, with these snowflake young minds full of mush. I said snowflakes. I mean, it's like Obama crap. I don't understand it. I really don't.
On that question you mentioned in your answer about the racial identity, Trump pointing out, when did she become black? I mean, this was a thing online for some members of the black.
She became black the moment that she was kind of failing in the polls, and they flipped her over and they threw Biden under the bus, and they need to get the black vote. Black folks out there, I don't care. Americans in general, you need to see right through this bull crap. Don't let nobody. I don't care. Just because they're black, you shouldn't vote for them. That's wrong. You want somebody that's going to do the job. If it's a black person that can do the job, then so be it. But it's not her. It is not her.
Community, they've been speaking out about it, saying we're the ones who raised this. We don't think she's black. She always leaned into her Indian heritage, and Trump picked up on it. Maybe somebody fed it to him. I don't know. And that's when he made his comments. And even tonight, they're all over the internet saying we're the ones who raised it, not Donald Trump. But in any event, so they elevate this. It's already come up, right? Trump's already been asked about it at the NAB.
He was asked about it. I think that's what she's fixing to say, because obviously this is live. I've never seen it. There was that interview he had at the Black. I think it was Communications. They were black journalists and stuff. And there was a woman on there that just come right out of the gate and kind of nasty and not very polite, which was unprofessional of her. Whether she doesn't like him, she doesn't even know him personally. She just doesn't like his policies or whatever it is. She still should not have been rude to him. But they're the ones that brought it up on that stage because I watched it.
Jay, that's where he said it. He was followed up.
Oh, yeah.
He's been asked about it in interviews. She was asked about it in her sit down with CNN. And I'll tell you, as a debate moderator, you factor all that in on whether you're going to raise it on the debate stage. Has it already been responded to? Has it already been? How long is the controversy?
Oh, and wasn't that a train wreck? The CNN one as well. It was terrible. It was horrible.
Been over. This would not have risen to the level. It would. Children are actually having their body parts chopped off right now by the Democrats. I feel.
I wish they would have brought that up, and they didn't. None of this woke crap. It's because the poor moderators. It was terrible.
Like that deserved a question.
I agree.
Little girls are having their faces pummeled and going into permanent brain damage because of boys playing. Maybe they could deserve one question instead of raising this thing over and over again. But here's how they did it. Mr. Trump, you're horrid. Here's what you said. Vice President Kamala Harris, would you like to comment on how terrible he is? That was there.
It was a bit childish, wasn't it? Or did you like the question where they asked him, would you have done something different on January 6th? I mean, they all have the footage. This was televised. He told people to protest peacefully. He asked Pelosi to, he asked, I guess, Pelosi and the governor or whoever it is there in controlling that stuff to get the National Guard down there. He said, this is going to get big. A bunch of people. I think you need to bring these people in. And she said no. They said no. They wanted something to happen. They wanted it so bad. And then something did happen. And then they harped on it forever. I got sick of hearing about it. They were so stupid. Oh, God. And then Destiny, that Destiny guy, what a moron. What What a nimrod. What a moron. I mean, these people know this. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. He told them to protest peacefully. 99.9% of the people who go to Trump rallies and stuff are peaceful, law-abiding citizens. More people on the left are crazy lunatic burning down cities, and none of them get arrested. And I loved that point he made, by the way.
MO, here it is.
Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black."
And I thought that was the stupidest question to ask because it has nothing to do with the state of affairs of the United States of America, that we're turning into a third world country. For Pete's sake, he should be ashamed of this guy's an idiot. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry.
I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
I don't care.
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so
I was cracking up. Whatever she wants to be, I don't care. She's going to change her accent. She's going to pull a Hillary Clinton. I mean, come on, people. It's so obvious.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up.
I thought she had said she was from India, or she's got some Indian in her, or whatever. I don't know what the hell she is.
To her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
I just thought that was not true at all. Not true at all. I think Obama, we had more race division under Obama than I'd ever seen in my lifetime. And I'm pretty old, guys. Yeah, I was a kid back in the 70s. And I've never seen it like that until Obama got elected. It divided us. We really did. Now, apparently there was some division too during the OJ crap. I remember that. I was out in California when it happened. I hadn't left California yet. I lived out there a few years. And I hated it. I hated living out there, by the way. Yeah, the weather was beautiful. I lived in a beautiful apartment complex, nice pool area, palm trees, crap everywhere. Man, but I hated it. It was expensive. Traffic was insane. I'm like, I want to go back to the East Coast or back to the South.
I mean, the playbook, Rich, it worked beautifully. Who couldn't?
I thought he answered it well. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with his answer. I thought she was a goofball. That she insinuated that he is dividing us. There are so many black conservatives that are on YouTube, guys. And if y'all have watched any of my videos, I profile a lot of them. And they're all about Trump. They can't stand this left woke crap. And it is wonderful and a beautiful thing to see all these conservatives coming out that are blacks that are against us, and they're waking up. They know that they've been lied to for decades. Look at the cities that are run by liberals. They're dumpster fires.
Look good out there with those two moderators doing that for her.
Yeah, that was a classic instance of the dynamic.
I guarantee you. Now, I just thought of this just now, that I bet that she knew. She knew the questions that were coming up. She was prepared for the questions. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm just speculating. But come on, people. It's ABC we're talking about.
Challenging question to Trump, and then to Kamala, what do you think, about this terrible thing he said? And so there was about, I don't know, I didn't have a timer on it, but it felt from the initial questions, after the initial questions on the economy, I thought Trump was quite good on that. Then we get abortion, we get January 6th, we get election denial, we get this. It felt like
it was stupid. All of those were dumb. And I was annoyed by all those stupid questions. I wish they would have just avoided that completely. They could stick to the climate crap. Yeah, because they didn't even bring up them wanting to mandate electric cars. That didn't even come up, and it should have. What they've done to California. It should have come up about the drugs pouring over the border and all these people in Philadelphia and California, all of these cities across America with these poor people are on these drugs and it is making them look like zombies. None of that was brought up. And all of this is under Biden and Harris administration. She is the border czar. This would not be happening if we had a wall.
45 minutes straight. It was on terrain that was not favorable to Donald Trump. And of course, not all terrain is going to be favorable to Donald Trump, and he created some of those problems for himself. But it felt like a very long time. And as you say, none of these things that would challenge Kamala Harris, like the thing that just emerged. Talk about something's new. You said as you pointed out, the answer about the Trump statement about her racial identity is old, but we just had the CNN getting the ACLU's scorecard or a questionnaire where she said that she supported the government paying for gender transforming surgery on illegal immigrants in detention is new. Like it broke a day or two ago, right? Did they ask her about that? No.
No, they didn't. I was wanting to know if they were going to ask that.
Question about that.
And that's insane. Taxpayer money. And they already have, guys, people who are in prison, which they had some hearings on it, who say now these are heinous criminals, by the way, say they identify as a woman, and they get moved to a woman's prison. Let that sink in. This is all because of her. This is because of her. And they didn't even talk about that. It's an outrage.
She also put on her website, finally, when she came out with her policy agenda, it says right there, plain as day, that she supports the Equality Act. And the Equality Act advances all of the awful mistreatment of young girls that we've just been talking about here. So she just puts this agenda out. It's a pretty obvious question. The CNN story comes out as well, and you get absolutely nothing. You get Donald Trump bringing it up, but nobody else seemed to have any interest in the story at all.
No, they don't, and they're not. They're not going to. No, we're going to dodge and just move around all of that. And how about that stuff happening out in Colorado, Jefferson County, Colorado, where the diversity people. I'm having a brain fart on that. There's this lawyer team. They're representing them. Out in Colorado, the Jefferson Co. Last summer, the girl went to on a field trip to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C., and lo and behold, she goes in her room. She's got 3 girls in there, and then there's a boy in there, and she's calling her mom. But she's going to have to share a bed with this kid, and she's in 5th grade. She's 11 years old. I was hoping they would bring up some of this woke crap because this is insanity on our schools.
Despite the fact that Kamala Harris has been a champion of these very policies.
Yeah.
They don't care, and they don't understand the right half of the country. There weren't any questions.
No, they understand. I'm going to disagree with Megan here. They understand what they're doing. They've been doing this for decades. This has been plans upon plans upon plans. Some of these people are dead already. They don't care. They didn't, they're continuing to move forward with this agenda, with this liberal agenda. And I tell you what, in my lifetime, over the past 5 years, or at least the past 4 years, since Biden and them has been in office, this has gone on, woke has gone on steroids. Where now you've got the gender identity, called by the pronouns, stifling our speech. You can't even say certain words on YouTube. I mean, it's crazy. We're in America. It's for the people, by the people. We're supposed to be free. Now, I'm not saying you can get up in a theater and cry, scream fire, and there's no fire and create a panic. No, not that kind of free speech. But don't tell me I have to call somebody a he, she, it, them, they, what, when, where, and why. Don't put that in my mouth. I can say what I want to say. And even if I offend somebody, oh well. Boo-hoo, right? But the thing is, we have free speech, and these people know what they're doing, and they've been doing it for years. They dumbed down our education. They took Christianity out of school. They took away God. Now they've been indoctrinating our children for the past few years with this woke crap. Trans men dressed up as these horrific, scary women going into schools and dancing and shaking themselves in front of small children. And they promoted this. They want to destroy us from within. We are becoming a Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's what they want. They want us to be destroyed. Because then they can come and go, well, we're going to save you. We're all going to be the same. Just the point I was making earlier. I think they know exactly what they're doing.
Questions designed to test whether she's too far left for the right half of this country, and frankly, for the left half of this country. All of the questions were trying to expose how radical he is, how bad he is. It's incredible that they ignored the CNN report, this K-File report.
Well, the thing is that their playbook is you can't beat them. Harris and them can't beat Trump on substance and meat, on bringing the country back. So what do they have to do? And they've done this. I remember Rush Limbaugh talking about it 2 years ago. I miss him so much, by the way. They know exactly what they are doing. He used to say, yeah, they want to destroy you. They're going to attack you because they can't win in an argument. So they have to attack you. They got to find any dirt that they can. They'll scrounge up anybody they can. Now, look, they were trying to scrounge up any kind of woman that would say that Trump did something to her or said something out of cuff to her and just destroy them. But look at when Obama was being elected. Oh, no, don't talk about where he was born. Oh, no, he's this, he's that, and this kind of thing. But nobody was really literally on the right attacking him personally. They were looking for, okay, is he legitimately a citizen? Okay, that's fair enough. What has he done lately? He didn't do nothing. He came from nowhere. He was a community agitator. He came from nowhere. And then somehow he becomes a senator. And then out of nowhere, he's running for president. It's insane to me how it happened. If you go back and look and watch the pattern, you're like, oh my God, how did this happen? But think about how the right was coming after Obama on policies because he was a socialist. But how were they coming after their other opponents? They were attacking them personally. They were, Palin, they attacked her personally. Oh, I can see it from my house. You know, they just made fun. They make fun. They attack personal, and then they try to dig up dirt. It's not, we can't win on ideas. They know this. They're not going to win on ideas. They're going to win on stupid social issues like woke crap, gay marriage, just dumb-ass stuff that doesn't mean diddly squat. But they're not going to beat them on substance. They know exactly what they're doing.
That in which they exposed, yes, she had told the ACLU that she wanted to make taxpayers pay for gender transition surgeries for criminally convicted illegal immigrants. Can you get more radical than that? That she wanted to take away funding from ICE at the border. There were so many things. Oh, that she wants detention. To legalize all drugs. She wants to legalize all drugs, including fentanyl and heroin. She wants to.
Again, I'm going to say it. Yes, they want all of this. They want us to destroy ourselves. Do you think these people are sitting back and laughing how stupid we are? And guess what? We are. We elected Biden. Whether he won fair or not, because, guys, it's been known for decades. Dead people vote for Democrats. Somehow dead people vote for Democrats. It's not a big secret. It seems like nobody wants to talk about it, but it's true. Trump had a legitimate reason to contest the election, and he has the right to. Remember the Chads? Remember the Chads when Bush was running against Al Gore? Boy, Al Gore was pissed. The hanging Chads and all of this crap. And he ends up losing. But what did he do? He wanted recounts. And guess what? He got them. Nobody batted an eye. Oh, no. Oh, no. God forbid that a Republican comes up and says, hey, I'm questioning the votes here. I think we need a recount. And they have a right to do that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Where was the question about that? Yeah. Instead, we got 2 on the 2020 election, 1 on climate change, and ridiculous comments like the one here in number 11. Watch SAT 11.
Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that
why? That's exactly what they did to Trump. They're just trying to get him with the long arm of the law. They're such hypocrites.
What do you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million
people. Oh, my
people.
God.
So let's be clear about that.
Let's be
clearly
clear.
He is having a very difficult...
Y'all remember Obama used to always say that. Let's be clear. We need to move forward, not move back. She is Obama. I'm telling you, he must be writing her damn speeches. Or whoever wrote for him writes for her.
Time processing that.
So yeah. I don't have a problem with bringing up that Trump post. It's newsworthy. It's important. But the way the question is framed is, do you agree with your own campaign, Madam Vice President? And going back.
No, I don't agree with him.
To the ACLU questionnaire, this perversely it plays into their sense of superiority that you've been hitting on, because they think they're so good at their job, and so above it all. They don't know about that, or they don't bother to understand.
No, they know they're good at their job because they know exactly what they're doing. Here comes Harris out of nowhere because Biden loses the debate. They want him out. They were before saying prior to that, Harris can't do that. She nobody likes her. She's not done anything. And then all of a sudden the script flips. Like soon as she said, okay, now they're going to hand it to her without even a vote on it. Right. So then all of a sudden now everybody, she's the best thing since sliced bread. They know exactly what they're doing. They could just say anything. And people believe it. It's actually mind-blowing that people buy into Trump. Trump's Hitler. Trump wants to be a dictator. Trump don't care about the people. Trump's a billionaire, guys, or he was, and maybe, but man, he's got millions upon millions. He does not need to be doing this. He could be going on an island. He's got yachts. He could be having the rest of his golden years in peace and harmony. But he loves the country. That should be something to say. For sure, at least in my opinion. I mean, the man's 80 years old. He doesn't have to be doing this, and I'm sure it's stressful. I am sure it's stressful. I mean, he's touring the country. He's doing all of this. He's having to do these debates and put up with her bullshit. He doesn't have to be doing this, guys. He's doing it because the country is in danger. He said if there was somebody else and if they were doing a good job, he wouldn't be doing this. I heard him say it.
And how important it is. So they let it go. And they think that shows how great they are. They don't fall for this right wing stuff. You know, they're all in good standing with the blob and only ask blob questions. But it really shows how terrible they are at their job and how they aren't to be trusted. And if Trump's going to do another debate, maybe he should insist that after they ask the question, that the moderators' mics are muted.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, you know
That's
what? Let's do another debate. I'll host it. I'll moderate it. I can do it by myself. I can't stand Kamala Harris, but I would be so fair. I would be so hard on Trump today. I said I read a list of questions I would ask Donald Trump, and they were not easy. You at least need somebody who, no matter what their strong bias or how they're going to vote, tries to be tough on both sides. This just in.
I think it makes a better debate if you have it where they're like hammering them both with legit questions, right? I mean, I think it makes a better debate. And obviously we knew who it was favored to, which I did. I picked up on the little sarcasm. That guy was sarcasm to him. He goes, well, no, it didn't come across as sarcasm when you said that you won by a niche. I mean, that was stupid.
Emily, because I guess she decided, oh, this will be fun to crap on him when he's down, when she perceives him as down. Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris. Taylor Swift, yeah. She posts a picture of herself with her cat. Would you look at this? You can, of course.
Okay, so that looks like a professional picture with her cat. It wasn't like she was at the house and watching the debate and then, oh, now I'm for Harris because she's going to kill babies. She's for abortion.
Kiss your sails to the Republican audience. Goodbye, Taylor. Hope you enjoyed them while you had them. And this is what
I think these people should not be letting their parents should not be letting their children listen to her music. I was watching something not too long ago, some of her lyrics on her last album, and I was like, dang. And little girls are crazy about this woman. I have no idea why. Yeah, I'm a washed-up rock roll musician. I like rock music. I don't like a lot of the newer stuff. Some of it's okay. Okay, I'll be honest with you. But look, the lyrical content is a problem. And it gets inside their heads. And it does make a difference. Read the lyrics.
What she posts. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now's a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about the proposed
Obviously, she did not.
Policies, etc. Recently, I was made aware that an AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to its site, blah, blah, blah. And the simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I am voting for Kamala because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader.
The only thing that she was voting for, because it certainly ain't for her protecting the border, because they haven't been protecting the border. She can't be voting for her because of the economy, because the economy is a pile of shit. She's voting for her because they're gonna abort children. I said it, and I believe it. That's the only reason. They're idiots. She's an idiot. What a Nimrod.
And I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of her running mate, Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her.
See, I knew that was coming too, because I was fixing to say, yeah, for the woke agenda. That's the only Taylor Swift is for murdering children and for woke people talking shit to our children in the schools and then wanting people to give them this puberty blockers and all this. It's demonic. Yeah, I said it.
Her own body for decades. Oh my God. So this woman is fine with his plan to take custody of the children from parents who don't want them to chop off their body parts and put them in Minnesota court's custody so the body parts can be chopped off and they can be sterilized outside the custody of their parents. That's what led Taylor Swift to endorse him. Can I tell you something?
See, I knew before even Megan said it. I knew. I said it a minute ago. I know why she's voting for him. I mean, I think they all worship Baal or something. They're devil worshipers. They had the abortion bus outside the DNC. They are the party of death. People, wake up. Don't support these people. Stop it. Stop it.
I criticized her about 6 months ago when she came out strongly in favor of, she went to a fundraiser to raise money for Hamas, supposedly Palestinians, but the group that was doing the...
I called it about 5 minutes ago, right? Let's do the playback. She's an idiot. What a Nimrod. She's going to go raise money for Hamas. What a moron.
Fundraising was known to funnel the money to Hamas. And I said, people should boycott her. It was an offhanded comment. People went nuts. Some lunatic dropped a note in my personal mailbox outside my house begging me not to boycott Taylor Swift, as though I have that power. I'm allowed to criticize.
I think parents shouldn't let their children listen to her music. Guys, go read the lyrics. She's promoting sexual promiscuity. It's disgusting. And little girls are listening to this. Small children should not be listening to this kind of music. And I've seen pictures of her concerts, and there's bunch of little girls out there. Boys aren't listening to that crap. I know my kid ain't listening to that. Look, guys, I taught him right. I got a guitar in that boy's hand, and he's doing really good. He's playing the violin. He can play guitar. He's got a bass guitar. Turned him on to the classics, man. Show him a little bit of Stairway to Heaven, the classics, learning and picking the guitar and learn how to Now, he doesn't like everything of old school I like, but he likes a good portion of it. And because the Taylor Swift's not even music. I mean, come on, people. Come on.
Criticize Taylor Swift. And I don't give a shit who gets upset. This is disgusting. If she wants to vote Harris Walz, she can do it all she wants. But to say the reason she's doing it is because of Tim Walz's stance on LGBTQ, F you, Taylor Swift. And
man, we knew that was coming. Come on, it's obvious. Most of all these libtards, I said earlier. What do they prey upon the most? The left. It's not on substance. It's on social issues, and it's on attacking their opponents. That's it. It's not on the border. It's not on the economy. No. We don't want all that. Let's talk about some dumbass social issues that can resonate with young minds full of mush. Oh, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're doing this intentionally because they want to destroy America and transform it into something unrecognizable. What is Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals? Destroy from within. And man, they've done a damn good job, and we've let them. We have been asleep at the wheel, and we need the sleeping giant, which is the American Christian conservative, needs to rise up. That sleeping giant. We need to have a revival and say enough is enough. That's what needs to happen.
F all of the people who want to see these children have body parts chopped off and watch them sterilized under the age of consent, and then will ride off to their multi-gazillion-dollar mansions, never to think of them again. Emily, this is a...
Well, Jesus said they're only. I think what One of them asked him, well, what about these people that are wealthy or rich? I'm paraphrasing, I know. I don't have the Bible right in front of me, but you get the point. Why those people, why are they wealthy? Why are they get all of this stuff? And what did Jesus say? It's only for a season. So don't get discouraged. When you see these very sinful, heinous people doing these things and they've prospered. They got mansions, millions of dollars. It's only for a season. Keep your trust in God. Keep your faith. Because it's better probably to die poor than to gain the world and lose your soul, right?
Unbelievable. The left is losing its mind. She signed it Taylor Swift, childless cat lady.
And you know what? She is a childless cat lady. I agree with Vance's point. Because women aren't getting married. Guess what they've been taught? This is going back to the liberal agenda that's been perpetrated on the American people for decades. Started in the 60s. Young girls don't need a guy. Now you can abort your baby. There's no consequences for sex. You don't need to get married. And guess what? A lot of these women are probably these women from the 60s. I don't know. I mean, they'd be older than me. They'd be in their 70s now, a lot of them. Or maybe some of them in their 60s as well that did get married, didn't have children. And who's going to take care of them? Now you done grown old, so now you just got a bunch of cats. You don't have any grandchildren. You don't have any family. That's pretty sad and pathetic, isn't it? If you think about it. Because you were fed a lie that you have a right to your body and you don't need to get married. You can be just as equal as a man and you can have this career. But then all of a sudden, I know damn well, because it's instinctive. Once you reach a certain age, you're like, oh my God, I think I do want to get married. I think I do want to have children. But then, who's going to marry you? She's probably going to be childless. How old is she? She's not going to want to ruin her figure. I don't even think she's that attractive anyway. I know I'm shallow. I'll admit it. I am shallow. She is not smoking hot. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. She is not. When she started getting popularity, I didn't even know who the hell she was for the longest time. She had already been super famous. And I seen some pictures of her. And I'm like, this is the person? This is the woman that everybody's crazy about? What's going on? Am I missing something here? Please tell me, what am I missing? Because she is not a beautiful woman. Now, I'm not saying she's dog, but she is not. She's no Wonder Woman. Now, the lady that plays Wonder Woman is absolutely beautiful. I mean, there's some beautiful women. She is not one of them. She is not one of them. I'm just saying. But let's see her with no makeup on. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, how cute. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly, it's not just that she's okay with everything you just described, it's that she actually actively supports it, and yet we can't even get a damn question about things like the Radical Equality Act or the CNN Gender Transitions for Undocumented Immigrants report. We can't even get one question about it, but Taylor Swift is going to get applauded for coming out and endorsing this ticket for the reason of Tim Walz's LGBT policies.
And what's sad is that this Taylor Swift person, cat lady, she has influence. Apparently. Parents teach your kids to think for themselves. Even when I was younger, I didn't get swayed by celebrities or other musicians, and I didn't do this worship thing. Now, I respected and admired musicians, of course, because I'm a musician. Rush, Queensryche. I mean, I was just loved Geddy Lee. I loved Alex Lifeson, and I loved Neil Peart and what they accomplished. But it wasn't like a worship type of thing. It was a respect of their musicianship. They're just people just like us. But the thing is, too, Laura Ingraham said, was it Laura Ingraham said years ago, just shut up and sing or shut up and act. Just because once they open their mouth and we find out what their politics are, it's a problem for me. I mean, it is a problem because when these people come out, that maybe there's some actors and musicians that I really liked and respected over the years and enjoyed their movies or their music, and then they open their mouth, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even listen to them now because that's what pops in my head. Their stupid crap that they say. Yeah, it's true.
Kamala Harris's LGBT
just shut up and sing.
Policies, which again, if you go to her website, cites very clearly that the cornerstone of it is basically the Equality Act, which is a radical piece of legislation. The vast majority of the country, the audiences of all of the glossy magazines that are now about to clap for Taylor Swift and Yas Queen her, the people that read those magazines don't like this stuff. They don't know about it because the media won't ask a freaking question about it in a debate. But Taylor Swift is also doing this, it should be noted, because Brittany Mahomes came out just a few days ago. She's been saying she supports Donald Trump. She liked a Trump post on Instagram, got a ton of heat for it. They were sitting apart from each other at the Chiefs game, and all of the speculation was bubbling up about whether they had broken their friendship over Donald Trump. Then they sat together again at the US Open, and Taylor Swift got all kinds of heat for being friends with a Trump supporter, and now she rolls out an endorsement right after the debate. That is absolutely not a coincidence. It's a calculated public relations move.
This pair, Taylor and her boyfriend, Travis Kelce.
They have all these people on email speed dial to send out the talking points. They hit all of these. Man, I'll tell you what, the left is so organized in their media propaganda, and they've got their tentacles into all these people who are very influential for young people. I guarantee you they were all messaged. All of them. Did y'all, I don't know if y'all watch Asmongold TV, but I like him. I know, I'm weird like that. But anyway, he was profiling these other, they were black guys who were hugely popular. I guess they're on Twitch and YouTube, and they've got like millions of followers and stuff like that. But they were being asked by the Harrison campaign for interviews. And they got on the air and go, why are you asking me to interview you? It would end my career. I don't know why they would think it would end their career, but they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. So the point I'm making is they reached out to everybody who they could or who they can to help promote their agenda. And again, it's all about the social issues and attacking the other opponents personally. That is how they do it.
Are the epitomes of elite snobs. They both have gazillions of dollars. She doesn't care what happens to these kids, just like he doesn't give a shit what happens to all the young men who take that Pfizer booster he's been pushing on them. I'm sure he's totally fucking clueless about the myocarditis taking the lives of young men in this country who didn't need the shot to begin with, never mind a booster. Where's Travis Kelce going to be? Because those are his fans. Where's he going to be when these boys wind up with heart scarring that causes heart attacks and potentially death? They will be sitting in their mansions in Rhode Island and California and New York and jetting across the world.
They want these people to die. I'm going to say it. I think they're worshiping the devil. They've all sold their soul. I guess when babies are killed and aborted and they're selling the parts and they're doing experiments and God knows what all they're doing with it. They're doing it I think they do it because they get power. They get some power from it. It's power I don't want nothing to do with. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'd rather just be poor, be me, and make it to heaven. I don't understand it. But I think to answer, she's saying, well, what, they don't care. No, they're doing it because they do care. They want them to die. I mean, Megan and them probably think I'm just some koopy, far right-wing, goofy, religious conspiracy nut. I'm not. I am really thinking of this logically. Why would you do this? Why would you want to destroy young children? You get power from it. I was watching something. Was that Shannon Daltrey lady that died that was on, what was that? It was a show about they were witches or something. And then watching that led me to another video about, what was the Vampire Diaries? And they were talking about, there was a panel. They were doing a Comic-Con, right? And they had one of the writers up there, and they were jovial about it. And the writer was like, "Yeah, we had some witches call us and tell us that we were the spells that they were doing on the show were real. Were real spells." She admitted, I watched it. I watched the panel. This woman who was a writer, one of the writers, whatever her name was, she said, yeah, she got this book. She got a book of spells and was using them. And then she said she just reworded some of the stuff, right? Now, I watched all of Vampire Diaries. I did, and I enjoyed it. But guess what? Every time they were doing spells, and I didn't know if they were real or not, I muted the TV. Because it was creepy. They start repeating it and it was just kind of stupid and silly. I'd mute it. I would mute it. But they were real spells. Why would the DNC have a vehicle parked outside for them to give abortion pills out to people? Just think about it. It's not because they feel like in the kindness of their heart that they want to support and care about the people. They don't care about the people. They want the power over the people. And how are they getting this power? I think the left wing, woke agenda, the libtards, they're demonic. There's no getting around it. There's just no getting around it. And I feel like I'm a calm, rational person. But I can't fathom that you could claim to be a Christian and vote for this stuff. Vote for any of it. Any of the woke stuff. To harm a child's body, to harm their mind, God have mercy on them. And I don't know if God's going to have mercy on them. I can just say that right now. I don't think God's going to have mercy on them. I think they know exactly what they're doing. They want the power.
World saying, let them eat cake because they'll be bathing themselves in their own sanctimony, too obsessed with their money and their concerts and their football games to have a thought for those they've hurt.
The sanctimonial blood that has been shed under their reign.
Okay. It's just another night after a regular debate hosted by regular moderators in a regular media world. Emily and Rich,
I thought you started
love you guys.
I thought you started hot at the beginning, Megan, but really you saved it for the end.
I actually am kind of hot. I don't know. Is it menopause? I'm not sure what it is. I'm angry.
How old is Megyn Kelly for her to go through menopause? I don't know. Is she 50?
You need a cat.
You guys, it's great. Yeah, I need a cat. Somebody get Strudwick in here. That's all I can handle. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Megan.
We're going to be back with the host of the morning meeting. This is Mark Halpern's group that he's been doing. We brought them to you recently, and I can't wait to hear what they're saying. First, though, did you know there is nearly $1 trillion? I'm thinking 3 against 1. That's why this is in my head. There's nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be.
Okay, she's doing an info. You know what? I could fast forward this. There we go. Well, we'll just give it a moment. We'll give it a moment. Yeah, that's I think they worshiping the devil. They done sold their soul. Because it's some heinous stuff what they're doing. And people are believing it and wanting it and thinking it's okay to do this with their children. It's scary. It's like we're in the Twilight Zone. It's like we woke up one day and went, what the hell's going on? The whole world's turned upside down. Wrong is right and right is wrong. There we go.
Pretty much agree with you. I mean, I thought she was a C+, except on abortion, where she was A, and A+ on baiting Trump. Trump took the bait repeatedly. But the real story is the moderators, as you suggested. They fact-checked Trump. They didn't fact-check her. They chose topics, including abortion, that would help her. When she baited Trump and Trump switched topics, they switched topics to ask her on immigration. And all their questions were poorly formed. And they asked a bunch of yes-no questions, which they shouldn't do. When they asked her semi-tough questions, she changed the subject, didn't answer at all. They just moved on. So to me, it might affect voters. It probably won't. But if Trump's goal, which it is to define her as weak, failed, and dangerously liberal, he was weak and failed in doing that. And so he missed his opportunity. And I'm not saying it means he's going to lose, but he was horrible. And he lost literally every round of the
I disagree. I thought he did good. Damn.
Debate, in part because the moderators were just so ridiculously pro-Harris.
It was like they had fire hoses against him. There was so much that Trump had to try to bat down. He did what he could, but no.
That's why I think he did good. I mean, he had poor moderators, not fact-checking her. Factor in all that and think about how he performed. He did good. He had the deck stacked against him.
Human would have been capable of handling the number of lies she was saying.
I don't know how much longer I'm going to go.
Go ahead, Mark. What were you going to say?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to make clear, though, he was horrible. Sure, it was stacked
What did you think was horrible about
but
it?
he had to come in knowing that. He got baited every time, talking about people leaving his events, talking about people eating cats,
He shouldn't have brought that up, but it has been a subject that people are talking about.
Yeah. Talking about his criminal cases, talking about race. The moderators and Harris spent the night trying to bait him into talking about stuff that wasn't about her record. He barely talked about her record. He talked more about Joe Biden's record. So I agree that the moderators controlled the stage and they made it horrible, but he was horrible and didn't do himself any favors, even in the face of unfair moderators.
Sean Spicer, you're shaking your head. Why?
I don't know. I thought he did good with the deck stacked against him.
Well, first of all, I just want to congratulate the big winner tonight, Candy Crowley. She now is erased as the worst moderator in history, and David Muir gets to take on that honor. Look, if you look at the first half of the debate, which is where I think most Americans were paying attention, Trump was spot on, really going after immigration, talking about the threat that we faced. I don't disagree with Mark that a lot of the times he was baited. He focused on responding to her, which he shouldn't have. His classic line of the night, "You've had 3 years and you haven't done anything," came too far into the debate. I will agree with that. But it was, he landed a lot of punches, reminding people about immigration, the effects of it, and contrasting his record on the economy with hers.
And I thought those were the strongest things, which was important to me because it affects the country.
There were too many parts at the end of the debate. Yeah, it was 3-on-1. You start to look at race, climate change, abortion, Obamacare. I mean, it felt like a night at the DNC.
January 6th and election denialism, both.
Yeah, it was absurd. I agree.
Yeah,
both.
I mean,
exactly.
Look,
both got
this
up
was
there.
a
And then when she lied, and there were lots of lies, but here's just. So we played some of what they would do to Trump, right? Like they would fact check him with fact checks that were not true. And look, what do they do when Kamala Harris is up there misleading? All right,
it was insane.
It came up about the BLM riots. Trump raised it. Of course, the moderators didn't raise her support for bailing out the protesters. But look at this, SOT 10.
She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute.
And look how she shook her head. No, I didn't do that. Yeah, she did. I've seen the interviews. I've seen it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. She said, yeah, she wanted to defund the police and give that percentage of the revenue to another area that would help defend us, which didn't make any sense because it's the police that defend us. If somebody's breaking into your house, who do you call? It's not Ghostbusters.
I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Ooh, I love that.
She went out.
I remember that.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
I thought it was spot on when he did that. I loved it.
A radical left liberal that would do this.
So she's shaking her head no when he's saying she bailed out these criminals. This is her tweet. This is her tweet. Kamala Harris tweeted it out on 6/1/20. If you're able to, chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. This is exactly what he was referring to. If she had a defense on...
I wonder how much money they raised for that crap. And what idiot sent money for that?
We didn't get to hear it because the moderators did not follow up. They moved on. Miss Fact Checker Lindsay Davis, Mr. Fact Checker David Muir.
Because they fact checked it and went, holy shit, we can't fact check this on air because Trump is right. They fact checked it all right. Oh, they knew it was fact.
Had no interest in actually following up and saying, here's the tweet, madam. You did. You shook your head. No, you did it. And as to the allegation about the illegals and the sex change operations, that was reporting that CNN had exclusively on the K-File yesterday. You filled it out in an ACLU questionnaire. How can you shake your head? No, you didn't do it. Where was that fact check, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, on issue after issue, it was, we're going to say, and by the way, the quote fact checks that they did against Donald Trump were wrong. The Virginia governor, Ralph Northam, a former doctor, did say exactly what Donald Trump said he said. Whether or not that abortions are performed at that late stage is quite another issue. The Virginia governor said exactly what Donald Trump said. There are reports
we actually
online now, the issue of those issues in Ohio.
And Kamala never answered it straight up.
Ohio have come out. So issue after issue, they fact checked them incorrectly.
Yeah, that's the thing, leaving the audience with the appearance that...
No, they fact-checked it, but they... Guys, they know exactly what they're doing. Trump agreed to this.
Didn't know what he was talking about, and he was lying repeatedly, which she kept saying, and it played beautifully for her. Tim, what are your thoughts on tonight?
Yeah. I guess, look, hearing all of this, you kind of would think that like Donald Trump has no agency in this situation, that if the bait is set and he takes it, he is a victim in that situation. We got fact checks on questions like Sean noted. There is no state where it's legal to kill a baby, right? And if you make that fact check and it is something inserted at the end of an answer to tell the viewer, but if that is the case, is that really?
Let me ask you something, Tim. Let me ask you a question. In Minnesota,
oh yeah, let's hear this.
Very quick, one second.
Let me ask you a question.
I will just say, go ahead.
I'm fact checking you. In Minnesota, if they are trying to abort a baby and the baby is born, notwithstanding the abortion, it's born alive. Are you aware that it is legal for them to just let the baby sit on the table and die? They do not have to get medical care. Do you know that?
A lot of people don't know that because it's so horrifying. They don't talk about it.
But the way that Donald Trump is describing it is like women are making a decision where they have a baby, and then
so
they say,
you didn't deny it.
That's
what we're referring to when we say it's legal to kill the baby post-birth. The Republicans tried to pass a federal bill that would make you provide medical care, not just comfort care.
But I will just say,
and the Democrats killed it.
Okay. I will just say, this is part of the reason why the Dials testing for Democrats, or at least what we're hearing from the Biden campaign, is the best on this issue, is because Republicans talk about it in this way. I will just say, too, on the bias question with a.
Why can't the Republicans tell the truth? Because the truth is horrifying. And so you're going to dance around it. That's a problem.
ABC. He had about 6 to 7 extra minutes to answer questions. And that may be the worst things that the moderators actually did for Donald Trump, is actually give him extra time to speak, because he couldn't stay on message, because he followed every trap and every rabbit hole she set for him. And when he set one for her, which was pretty gross, and I'm glad she didn't take it, that she puts out, which is fairly disgusting thing to say, she made it a question about decency larger for the country. So, I guess my point on the bias is these people have agency. You can choose to answer the questions you want. When you're answering a question about China, don't talk about how you love Xi. Don't take the bait on your rallies being emptied. Don't say that you would not necessarily veto an abortion ban. Don't refer to the rioters at January 6th as we. Don't give an incoherent answer on energy and oil. Don't talk about eating people's pets.
And Tim, one more
I'd add. It is his choice.
One more I'd add that. Say you want Ukraine to beat Russia. He wouldn't say he wanted Ukraine to beat Russia.
Man.
Sure.
It is.
I understood why he said. I understood why he didn't say what he said about Ukraine, because let me tell you guys, in the Republican Party, they're over Ukraine. They're done. They're done funneling money to this country. They believe that the war is already lost and that it will not be won by Ukraine, and that what needs to be said is, let's face reality. They've already lost, and Donald Trump understands that. And that is why he answered the way he did on Ukraine. But the thing about the pets in Springfield, can we just spend a minute on that? Because Trump was right.
There is reports. I did a video on it. There is some lividity, but I couldn't find any evidence. Now, when I did the video yesterday morning, unless there's some other stuff that's come up I don't know about.
Seen first-person testimonials by residents there saying, yes, they took ducks out of the pond and beheaded them to eat them. We've seen Facebook posts with a woman claiming that a cat had been stolen and that they saw their family cat strung up the way you'd string up a deer, and that it was clearly being skinned and prepared to be eaten. And
I couldn't find any visual. It's only been verbal documentation. I haven't seen any visual of this happening.
All we have in response is the city manager vaguely saying that he doesn't believe these things are true. But these have been debunked. They're not true. I'm telling you, that's not what happened. So once again, you have David Muir with his attempted fact check, and Trump was right to say, I've seen the people themselves offering these testimonials. This has been unresolved at best. This has not been resolved in favor of the city manager. Go ahead, Mark. Oh,
Megan,
I'm sorry. I'll give you the floor. But let me just make clear. The reason this is relevant is because it's Haitian migrants who have come to the city and are accused of doing these things. Go ahead.
Have come to this city. They were imported into that city. Anywhere from 15 to 20,000 of them in the past 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. There's been an influx and perpetrated on that city, straining their resources.
But let's say it's 100% true. And we don't know. We don't know that it's false, but we don't know how true it is, right? Let's say it's 100% true. Is that really the best way for Donald Trump to have it out over the negative effects of illegal immigrants in this country? Is that really the best way? When there's many
he should have
examples
talked
of
about Laken Riley
known
again.
murders? Correct. He should have said to her, Madam Vice President, tell us the story of Laken Riley and what it means to you. You know, fighting about dogs and ducks when there's actual concrete examples. It's testament to how easily he was baited and how, as much as the moderators were absolutely against him, he did himself no favors.
Tim, what are you hearing amongst Democrats? Like, are they euphoric tonight? They feel like this is a crushing, because now she's out there saying,
oh, yeah, they're probably fawning over how unsubstantiated she was because, like I said, liberals reward failure.
Let's have another debate. Let's have lots of debates.
Yeah. I'm trying to put my best poker face on here for how good I feel, So I think people are happy with how the debate turned out. I think, look, there's a little bit of euphoria on the Democratic side right now for how well this debate went, but I think people come back down to earth very quickly, understanding that, yes, this is the largest bipartisan audience we're probably going to get that's going to be able to see the two of them on stage. But this is going to be a really, really close race. And it's going to remain that way after this debate. So even when it feels like a slam dunk on either side, we still are where we are.
You know what's pathetic is this shouldn't even be a close race. With the economy been like it is, all the crazy crap, it just, I just don't understand it. How can this be close?
I did note that, Brian Fallon tweeted that they were happy with the debate. They're looking forward to doing it again in October. So I said this morning, I lean towards a second debate will happen. I still believe that.
Yeah,
there was not a single question about. Yeah, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Because I would just be careful what you wish for. I just don't. I think that at best this debate is a push. I think the Kamala Harris folks might. I think the people who were supporting her are probably excited. I think the conversations that I've had and the texts that I've had with folks on Team Trump think that he did exactly what he needed to do. People were looking at him to see if he would go over the top, if there was going to be name calling. Remember, there was bars set for each of them. And people were concerned that Trump was going to come out and call her names and talk over her or whatever.
And he didn't. She talked over him.
He actually flipped the script on her, as you played just a moment ago, when he said, I'm talking now, using that famous line that she used against Vice President Pence in the 2020 cycle. So I think that we have to judge this. The real audience here were those undecided, persuadable people in the 7 battleground states. And I don't really think, to be honest with you, that the needle got pushed a lot for either candidate. Both sides got kind of what they wanted out of this debate. And if there's a second debate, there's more for her to lose than for him to gain.
Sean, you were on
Here's
Rhode
that
Island
stop
mushrooms.
you just
Do you
mentioned.
think he got what he wanted?
Let me just play stop 15 that Sean just referenced. Watch.
In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out.
I think she did it on purpose to try to goat him.
All right. It was a good line. He had it ready. Almost everything she said was canned. Almost everything she said. I mean, and she did a good job of memorizing her lines.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but if that was his prepared line that landed that people are really excited about, man, I feel better about this debate.
You didn't like Run Spot Run?
You
didn't like Run Spot Run? I thought that was good early on.
That was all right.
The whole election is about him convincing people she's out of the mainstream. And he just didn't do it. I mean, there's just no evidence that he achieved that. I don't know. I don't think this wins the election for her. I don't think it loses it for him. But just, and again, 1 on 3 is not easy. But, he's got some individual lines you can play, but go back and review the transcript. Go back and watch the whole thing and find just how often he failed to do anything on his core mission of defining her as out of the mainstream.
Well, can I do the thing that's interesting?
He talked about Joe Biden.
Right when the debate started, and David Muir posed that 4-year, are you better off 4-year question to her.
Are we? Are we better off?
Was an opportunity for her. She didn't answer the question, but I also thought that he should have come right out of the gate and said, you're not better off 4 years ago, and contrasted his record right away. I think that was a missed opportunity. I'll give you that. But for anyone who was looking right when that debate started to see how she would answer the question, it was not a good answer on her behalf.
Her answers were horrible.
Here
but Sean,
is-
he didn't hold her accountable on that or on immigration.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I have to say, though, I had sympathy for Trump. I really did, because it was everywhere. It was coming at him from everywhere.
I thought he did good. I thought he handled himself well.
Was hammering him. The questions that he was being asked in the principal sense were hammering him. The fake fact checks were hammering him. She was lying and there was no fact check. And then they turned to him and not let him respond and hit him with another controversy. I mean, it was an all pile on. And I felt for the guy. He's only human. This would have been tough. Look, I feel like this would have been tough for me. And I can argue these issues. I'm good at arguing these issues.
But Megyn, are you the least bit surprised, though, Megyn, that that's what happened? Are you the least bit surprised?
Yeah, I am.
I'm not surprised that it went the way it did.
I thought that they'd go CNN route. I thought they'd go the Dana Bash, Jake Tapper route of, what are we going to do about Social Security? What are we going to do about the border? I didn't think they would be this biased. I thought they'd worry about their reputations. And now you're getting reaction like this, media reactions pouring in. I give you Chris Wallace.
Our favorite Chris Wallace. Here we go.
Didn't think I was ever going to witness a debate as devastating as the one that you and Dana moderated back in June, where Joe Biden basically tanked his reelection campaign. I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout on almost every subject I can think of. She shut.
Do you think his father's rolling in his grave? This guy.
Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy. She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you think that you're a disgrace. And then as Dana...
Yeah, and then he turned around and said, yeah, I fired him. I thought it was brilliant. I fired them all. That's why they don't like me. It was brilliant.
Mentioned very powerfully at the end, made the point that she is the candidate of change. We need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well.
That guy needs to retire for real. Come on, man.
I find that amazing. I think these Democrats are feeling good because they finally have a candidate who can argue, unlike the one we saw in the June debate. But I believe that this did not turn anything in her favor. And I actually do not think there's going to be a big bounce for her in the polls. And I think Trump remains on track to win this election. Mark, am I wrong?
I agree with everything but the last point. And I think the last point's only true if through the course of the campaign and advertising and his own events, he convinces the country that she's more out of the mainstream than he is. And he just didn't do that tonight. But I think if he does that, he'll win.
Megyn, can I go back to one quick point you made about ABC? Because I think this is important to understand.
ABC sucks ass, by the way. Just had to say that.
At least from my perspective. I think ABC, for those of us who wanted to see fairness and looked at the CNN debate, I think for a lot of folks in the media and on the left, they didn't think that CNN did enough to go after Donald Trump. And when it comes to ABC, I think that they tried to fulfill what they believed their role was to their constituency, which was, you need to take on Donald Trump. They're going to get kudos from their colleagues and from the legacy media tonight because they felt as though they had to fulfill that role.
I think exactly.
Yeah, they love to pat each other on the back. You know that.
Their boss is her best friend.
Yeah,
it's just not decisive either way. It's just not decisive either way to say he got fact checked 3 times at the end of a question and therefore the whole debate is rigged. I just think it's overblown, and I think you can instill that feeling. I think in a certain group of people, Trump's base, who may feel that, but I don't think that brings any new people in.
Just once, Tim, I want a Democrat to go through a debate like that with a supposedly neutral media organization and see how you.
No, they wouldn't survive. Because all they do is attack and then play upon stupid ass social agendas.
Feel about it just once.
You know what? Let me moderate it, and that's exactly what will happen to her. And I'll do it to him too. And I have a proven track record of being very, very tough on Republicans.
But Megyn, if you
do it.
But Megyn, if you did it, it wouldn't be like that because you would be tough on both sides. That's my
exactly
my point
right.
is being tough on. Right. But I'm saying let Tim and some Democrat he works for go to a debate that's 3-on-1 and see how the Democrats feel about it.
Let Tim and the dumbasses that he's with go. This guy, Tim, man. Come on, man.
All
This doesn't happen.
the fact checking is against one candidate, and there is none against the other. When all the controversial things that one candidate has done are teed up and he's hammered on it, and the next question is to his opponent saying, what do you think of that terrible controversy? As opposed
What'd you think? Did he hurt your feelings because he said you weren't black, or he didn't know you were black? He thought you were from India. Are you butthurt? How do you feel about that, by the way? Forget about how you're going to fix the country, the country you destroyed.
to drilling down on her weak spots. It was the most egregious hour and 45 minutes of bias I have witnessed at any debate that I have witnessed. And I've witnessed and participated in a lot. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was just going to say, and look, you can ask those questions. And as many people on debate stages have proven, you can answer those questions how you would like. And you can bait your opponent how you would like. And you can stay on message and you can drive a core vision of what you want to do. He just can't do that. And it is a problem for him, I think, uniquely in a way that he's such a highly reactive individual, right? So when he does get prodded in that way, he is at a disadvantage because I think there is something core in his DNA that he can't not take the bait in those situations. My question though for Republicans walking out of this is like, what was the plan? And was this anywhere close to the plan? Like, what was the outcome supposed to be here? Did they, if this was the belief that there was a
Trump was Trump. That's it. And I like it. And I respect that. He doesn't pretend to be anything else but himself. And that's what I do like about him. Harris, she's a chameleon, man. She flip-flops just so she could get elected.
grievance that ABC would be biased? Was there any preparation for that? Was there any thought to how he would duck and
He knew that they were going to be biased. Come on, he's not an idiot. The guy's smart.
dodge and maneuver on the stage to deal with it? Or do you just go in and then complain afterwards?
Here is, can we play SOT 26? This is Trump in the spin room responding to her call for a second debate.
Why won't you commit to a second debate with Kamala Harris if you believe
a second debate because she lost tonight very badly? So they immediately called for a second debate because they lost. So we'll think about that. But she immediately called for a second. Look, we're looking at polls. We're looking at polls. The worst poll that we've had was 71 that I see, 71% to like 24 or 25%.
Wow.
Okay, that's. I didn't hear a yes, unfortunately, because I would like to see it happen again. I'll leave you with this. Excellent job by the ABC News moderators. Signed, Jeffrey Toobin. He really liked it. How much did he like it? And was his joy caught on camera? You'll have to wait for that news story until another day. Guys, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Megan.
What a night.
Good to see you, Megan. Thank you.
Oh, what a night.
All right, coming up next, Eric Bolling. He's got thoughts. First, though, as the cool fall breeze settles in.
Guys, I'm wrapping this up. If anybody even watches this, I've got to go to bed. Dad, blame it. I got to get up early in the morning. Well, I did enjoy that. I was tired at first, but anyway, thank you for watching, and you guys